Looks like we are starting out another episode on another great backdrop. The weather looks warm, engaging, and cripes, this is a winter episode. Who am I kidding? That's the title of the episode, isn't it? Proceed with the winter fluff crap. What could possibly be of today's discussion, seeing how it's Christmas time in this story? Other than Christmas.
It's nearly Thanksgiving, and I'll bring you lots of letters and parcels. But then, an early snowstorm came.
Wait, what? Thanksgiving? Alright, that's 2 strikes for this episode already. This is bogus. Actually, it isn't. Being that I'm using the UK title with the US dub, it's going to be wrong. However, I will explain why this is no excuse in the end. When the storm had finished battering the island, snow lay everywhere. So instead of actually doing the jobs the engines were initially going to do, they had to clear the rails first. Why can't it just be one of those oddball days where it snows, but then it hits 50 degrees the next day and it all melts? That would be much easier.
Driver says there's lots of mail for the village, said Thomas. I'll need an extra car for it all. Percy was feeling left out. It's not fair, you're not leaving any mail for me. But Percy's chance had come.
The reason why Percy got lucky was due to Top Hat needing Thomas at the big station, thus leaving Percy to take all of the mail. Thomas was upset though because all the gifts he promised his friends for Thanksgiving weren't going to be delivered by him. The place Thomas wanted to go was Ulfstead, which ended up being the place Percy went to. Unfortunately, because of all the snow that just fell, the post train came across a roadblock.
The village is cut off by the snow. Leave your cars in the sidings and go back quickly. Percy was soon steaming to Harold's airfield. Wake up, lazy wings! The mountain villagers need your help. They're stranded.
And of course, how could Harold ignore such a plea? Right behind Harold's exit was Thomas with the breakdown train carrying Terence. Then they set off to Ulfstead to help clear the snow. I find it funny how Terence is like the only tractor on the island to help clear snow. I get it if he's local, but the island of Sodor isn't that small. If everyone relied on Terence, he wouldn't be done plowing snow until the springtime.
Harold was already there, busily dropping food for Thanksgiving dinner to the people below. Terence quickly got to work. Lovely stuff, he said as he pushed the snow aside.
Harold dropping Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, I could kind of buy that, but not really. I'm also surprised the filming of that scene didn't knock over any of the figurines. I'm sure it took a few takes, but then again, who knows how long it took. The villagers were happy nonetheless for the help and were pleased to see Toby bring in even more delights for them. Meanwhile, everyone else in the different towns of Sodor starved to death. I don't know, I just can't imagine this being the only area on the island that got snowed in.
That night, all the engines had gone back to the sheds except Toby. The villagers had made a plan to thank the engines. They loaded paint pots and parcels into Henrietta, and then they set off through the moonlit countryside.
Meanwhile, Toby headed back to Tidmouth Sheds where the passengers who were on board Henrietta unpacked all the gifts they brought with them. There they began decking out the interior while the other engines slept. Toby wasn't even sure what they had planned, but he felt it was going to be great. As did the engines, who were shocked the next morning to see the villagers didn't even know it was Thanksgiving, because they put up a giant Christmas tree in the middle instead. How stupid.
When the engines woke the next morning, they could not believe their eyes. The sheds had been repainted and decorated. The engines whistled in delight, and everyone agreed that it was a really happy Thanksgiving.
Not gonna lie, this episode was the dumbest of the dumb when it came to presentation. The story itself isn't horrible, but there's not much development anywhere. And the reason for that was that this episode was supposed to be like the last 2 Christmas specials at the end of seasons 1 and 2. Instead though, because this was the US dub, about 20 seconds of this was cut because it was pertaining to Christmas and Santa Claus. But even so, it doesn't make sense because when Carlin narrated the other 2 specials, at least his lines included Happy Holidays. I don't see why all of a sudden that needed to be removed. And as I said, I stuck with the UK titles because this is where the stories originated from, and that's what these were intended to be about. So with that, this episode comes off to me as the most lackluster in a long time. It's still not kill me, it's awful, but it's just, moving on. This holiday special, if you want to call it that, wasn't as diverse as the last 2 either. Yes, we do get various characters seen throughout, but it's not as exclusive as the Season 2 special. We've had several more characters introduced now, and it would have been nice to see some of them involved. The only two minor characters that really have a purpose was Terrence and Harold, and without them, Thomas and Percy would not have gotten that far, at least I think. The music and visuals were more of the saving grace to this entry. Musical motifs were very much abundant. Thomas's anthem is heard a couple times. The post-strain theme is played when Percy begins his deliveries. When Harold flies off to help, his cue kicks in. And lastly, Toby's is worked in as well when he brings the gifts to Tidmouth Sheds. For set designs, the areas shown have all been seen, but there are new angles to view them at. Ulfstead was seen briefly in the Bulgy episode, but here we see it from far up the hill in summer and winter, as well as close up when Percy and Thomas make their way over, and even from up above as Harold drops his packages. Tidmouth Sheds' exterior and interior are shown. The Tidmouth Goods Station is seen as Toby arrives with the villagers. Arlesburg Harbor is shown as Thomas and Percy wait on the mail. The lower Sudbury shunting yards is where Donald clears the snow. For once, viewers see Dryaw Station in the snow where Harold normally stays. Then there's the windmill, which is the same one at the intro credits, but it doesn't make sense seeing how it's sitting much higher than before. The one in the intro credits is at the same elevation as Thomas drives by. Lastly, the waterfall is seen when the episode starts, the type of season I would prefer to return to. Finally, we are done with Season 3. What a trip. Lots of additions in this season, and the list will only continue to grow. In Season 4, we start out our next episode with Grand Puff. Thanks for watching.